Well, hey, what's up? Welcome back to Behind the Anvil. Today we're joined with Mandy Thomas.
You got it.
Okay, because your the other name on Facebook, I have no idea how to say it. Thank God I got some else. And then Josh,
Gagne.
say that one more time.
Gagne.
Gagne.
Yes.
All right, that's it. You hear different names every time. Um, Dragon City and Mission Phoenix, because we can't say Phoenix apparently today. Um, we're going to chat about a little bit about Dragon City and a little bit about Mission Phoenix and Attila the Dragon and other fun stuff. But first, hey, like you guys, you got to pay the bills, right? So, Dragon City pays the bills. Well, Behind the Anvil is brought to you by Mike's Damascus Knives, from everyday carry to pocket knives to kitchen cutlery. And yes, I'm reading the script, and that is in the script. And back to it. Or you want to make a knife on your own, come down to the shop with Mike's Damascus knife making experience. You can check information out on Mike's Damascus Knives on the interweb.com. I guess I'm screwing this one up. Here we go. Facebook, Mike's Damascus LLC. Or you go down to Dragon City Resort and check out the selection of cutlery that Mandy has on hand. And hopefully she doesn't bleed Josh. So anyway, Mandy, I'm going to have you guys plug your stuff real quick as a basically kind of yeah. I'm going to shut up now.
Okay, so Dragon City is out here on Highway 129 in Maryville, Tennessee. We are located on the Tennessee side of the Dragon. We have a restaurant, a microtel, a campground, and we are currently in process of building both another microtel, tiny homes, and then a tiny home community for the veterans.
Nice. Josh, go.
Yes. So, Josh, I am the founder of Mission Phoenix. We are a 501c3 charitable organization. We work with veterans that struggle with post-traumatic stress, specifically active duty post-traumatic stress. We've developed programs for law enforcement. We've developed icons for identifiers for veterans with PTSD. And now we are launching into a veteran housing initiative to try to help veterans transition between homelessness into long-term stabilities.
Awesome. Plug your social real quick right here at the beginning, so that way, they can find you.
Mine, Facebook, Instagram, soon to be TikTok. It's Dragon City TN, or online, the website is dragoncityresort.com.
Awesome. Josh?
We are at Mission Phoenix org on almost all social medias except for Facebook, which is Mission Phoenix 22, because someone took Mission Phoenix.
See, I knew there was a 22 in there, Mandy. See, I knew that.
Yeah,
that's our.
It's in our logo too. It's we fight for the 22 veterans a day that take their life. So
sorry, Mandy, I had to be this smart, guys.
I know, because he was like Mission 22, and I'm like, no.
I knew there was a 22 in there somewhere. My brain was catching that. So repeat your stuff real quick because I interrupt you. Sorry. I knew anyway.
It's okay. It's Mission Phoenix org on all social medias except for Facebook, which is Mission Phoenix 22. And our website is missionphoenix.org.
Awesome. Appreciate that. All right. We're going to dive in with Mandy real quick. We're going to run through some questions, and then we'll hit Josh up, and then we'll just kind of blend it in from there. So,
sounds good.
All right. What did I'm going to read my script here so I keep on here and look professional, which I'm not. What inspired you to create Dragon City Resort? What is your overall mission for the resort, Mandy?
Yeah, so that's a real funny story. My son and I had just moved to Cocoa Beach, Florida a few years prior to buy in Dragon City. And my son wanted to travel the country in a 21-foot RV. So we bought a 21-foot RV. We remodeled it to live in it full time for 2 years. And we hit the road. We didn't make it very far. We ended up here kind of traveling through the mountains, Pigeon Forge. And a girlfriend of mine who is a realtor saw this little rundown motel. And she's like, well, you're right up in that area. You should just go look at it. I did. And just kind of off the cuff, I'm like, well, mountain property, beachfront property, because I had a bunch of rentals down in Florida. Best of both worlds. So I just threw in an offer thinking, we'll see. And then I'm a very competitive person. So when she countered back, Then I countered, and before I knew it, I was closing on 3 individual properties all in 30 days, in the same 30 days to create Dragon City. So when I bought it, I had no idea what I was going to name it. I had really no idea what I was all going to do with it. I knew I needed to remodel the hotel. I wanted nothing to really do with the restaurant because I've never been in the restaurant industry. So I was going to lease that out. That really didn't happen. You have to have out here, there's really no one else out here. So you have to have good food. You got to be open all the time. So I had to kind of take that one under my wing too, which has been just learn as you go and do the best you
Growing
can.
pains.
Yeah, there was a whole lot of growing pains with the restaurants. But being that we're on the tail of the dragon, and I had this grand vision of, hotels, resorts, tiny homes, campgrounds, RVs, just all of that. I was thinking big. So I'm like Dragon City. It's like you could put a whole lot of, little businesses kind of under the big umbrella. And I blurted it out one day and I'm like, that's kind of a good ring to it. Everyone was like, yeah, that sounds good. So that's how it became Dragon City. And, over the years, things have changed a lot. It took a lot to remodel the place, way, way more than what I thought. And then you got the government issues and permitting,
Gotta love government.
licensing. Yeah, there's just so many roadblocks along the way. And because a lot of those roadblocks, it put some roadblocks into the finances. So things have switched and turned and, everything else. I always say to be a good business owner, you got to be really good at pivoting. So I've done a lot of that in the last 6 years. And, we got the microtel up, the restaurants. I don't think I could do anything else unless I add another building. I've packed everything in here I possibly can. Got the campground up last year. And now I'm kind of going after that last big vision, which was to develop the vacant land. And that's kind of where things have switched a lot. My plans for the restaurant, the hotel, the campground, that's always been there. I've completed all of those, but now it's the tiny homes, the cabins, and the veteran housing. So
Nice.
that's kind of it.
So for those who are listening and not familiar with the area, what is the dragon exactly? I mean, I know what it is, but for those who, you know,
Yes. So the dragon is and I had no idea what the tail of the dragon was when I came up here. I'm like, the tail of the what? Yeah. And then Killboy took me, Daryl from Killboy, he owns Killboy, or he is Killboy. He took me down the road and I swear I never wanted to do it again. I was so sick halfway up. I just wanted to walk home after that. But so it's a road that people know worldwide. I mean, we get bikes here people haul their bikes from Europe and Japan and just all over the place. It's pretty cool. We've met people from all over the world. But people come here to ride that road and a couple other, real famous roads in the area, but it's essentially 318 curves and 11 miles.
good
So
Lord.
it's just lots of switchbacks, lots of ups and downs. And over the years, because of other businesses, like mine, it used to be called like Gap Road way back in the day. And then, the Tail of the Dragon, they branded it Tail of the Dragon and they did a lot of advertising and it's just getting more and more popular every year. And now it's just insane. It's the traffic, the cars, anywhere from a beat up, I don't know, Subaru to a $500,000 Maserati, Lamborghini, just you name it. I see some of the coolest vehicles up here, every type of motorcycle. There is an off-road trail off the Tail of the Dragon known as Parsons Branch. So a lot of the Jeeps and Broncos ride that. So it's pretty cool. And I'm not really a big gearhead, but it's cool.
I'll bet. I mean, I've seen the pictures, and
Yeah.
our friend JD shares a bunch of stuff. He's told me a lot about it. I've been out close to it. I've got friends in Sevierville, down in Pigeon Forge. Got Robbie Bowman. Shout out to Iron Mountain Metalcraft there in Pigeon Forge. And they're really good people. You go down there forging a railroad spike. Here we get down there, go down and take your boy and have him forge out a railroad spike.
Yeah, he'd like that.
Got some other friends that just moved down there. And they're going to be opening a trading post there in Sevierville, just out in front of Smoky Mountain Knife Works. It'll be Smoky Mountain Trading Post. So get a chance to check those out. They'll be opening up here soon. So, so it sounds like your mission kind of now is to gear the Dragon City Resort into helping veterans. What is your vision for that in helping visions and using,
Yeah,
I'm guessing, the revenue from the
correct. Yeah.
business?
So I was Army. And when I got out of the Army, I started a company up in Wisconsin where I was pretty much raised. And I trained
The
horses.
cheat. So wonder
Yeah,
where you
the
got some
cheese
cheesy
steak.
jokes.
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah. Sometimes you hear that little, like, I don't know, people still tease me down here about my accent.
Sorry.
So,
Go ahead.
but yeah, so up in Wisconsin, I owned Liberty Stables. I was a big, like I say, it was an equestrian center, and I had that for 22 years. And when I met my son's dad, which would be 16 years ago, he was coming out of his fourth tour right after he rolled out his third tour. And he was just, it was bad PTSD, TBI, anxiety disorders. You know, the VA was pumping medication and antipsychotics to the point where he didn't even know who he was. And then during that administration as well, they cut the retirement benefits. They were trying to boot a lot of the soldiers that were about to retire, that were somewhere between like 15 years and 20 years. And there was just a whole lot going on at that time. And, you know, in trying to get him help, I realized real quick that the VA wasn't going to help. They were honestly doing more harm than good. And that's when I started educating myself, and just trial by fire, because I was living with this person. So he ended up quitting his job because he just couldn't hack it anymore because of the PTSD. And so I had him helping me on the horse farm, and I started to see very, very quickly a change in him. And, you know, so then I started looking up, you know, equestrian programs for veterans. And at that time, there were very few. You know, that was, like I say, 16 years ago. And now it's way more popular. But when I started to see those changes, I then developed a program at my facility to help veterans. And so I started doing that. So, you know, me working with veterans or feeling like I was giving back, you know, it all kind of started when I saw the issue, you know, or what the results of the issue were, you know, with Dan. Don't run the vacuum. And then from there, when I saw, you know, how much I could help, I started a program to help Dan. And then I started to be able to help other veterans. Now, fast forward to Dragon City, when I bought this place and I finally opened it up, in the very first summer that I opened it up, we opened up on Memorial Day. And I noticed right away, you know, it was a lot of Harleys, because they already kind of knew this place, you know, because it was kind of more of like a biker place before. But all the people that, you know, were coming in, you know, right away, every day, you know, it was, I'd say 50%, maybe more some days, veterans. And so I noticed just the mass amount of veterans that had motorcycles or were in motorcycle clubs or associations. And at that time it had been 6 years since I had worked at Liberty Stables. And at that time I was kind of griping, because I'm like, I felt like I wasn't doing anything. Like, I feel like I'm just running a business. I'm trying to make money, but I didn't have a lot of purpose at that point. You know, I had left all of that up in Wisconsin. And so I'm like, I need to figure out what I can do here to kind of do something like what I did up there. So I ended up meeting a guy shortly after, Willie Franklin, and he has, what's the name?
Lost Vet.
What's it? Lost Vets? The Lost Vets Rescue. And he had reached out. He's a local guy down here. He had reached out to me and asked if I had an empty hotel room for a veteran that he was trying to help. And it was late fall, if I remember correctly. And I'm like, sure. So then in meeting him, I started meeting some of his contacts and other people. I met Lisa from the VOA, which is Volunteers of America, and they house veterans full time. And she gave me a huge education in the problem and the gaps in the system. And that's where it was like, that's what I can do, because there is no help for veterans when they're homeless, getting them into some type of temporary housing. There's no grants, there's no VA help, there's no government help, there is no nothing. Like, there's nothing out there unless you find another small organization, that's willing to help, like mine or Mission Phoenix, Willie Franklin's organization, things like that. So being that was a big problem, and then I found out how big of a problem it was kind of in my area here. I'm like, well, I have all this land, I 100 acres at the time. And I'm like, I could throw up some tiny homes. I'm already going to be building these microtels and tiny homes. So I thought I would start teaming up with some other tiny home companies, see if I could get, someone to donate, like every, 10 tiny homes I buy or build, get one donated. And then, do something like that. Like I say, this was 6 years ago when I first started. But just to develop and do something like that, and then kind of lock arms with other organizations like Mission Phoenix. I do know, like Mission 22, he's helped with some of my stuff before, the VOA, the Lost Vets Rescue. There's a lot of little, other organizations around here, but no one does it all. So it's like, if you can kind of, broaden out, like I say, lock arms with multiple organizations, then it really helps that veteran full circle. And that's what's missing, because a lot of people, they'll put them in a hotel, but where's the help in that? They have probably PTSD. They need help getting their VA benefits. There's always so much more to the story than they're just homeless. So, and that's actually how, Josh and I met. And that's how I've met, a lot of the other organizations in the area as well.
Nice. That's an awesome story. That kind of answered one of these questions already. So I guess we
Good.
skip through. So 6 years ago you started, and you talked about how you built and everything got built up. Through those 6 years, not just working with veterans, but what's some of the challenges you've faced with running the business and trying to help veterans that kind of correlates? What are some of the biggest challenges that stick out to your mind?
Between running the business and helping veterans specifically?
However you want to do it. Let's do it with the business and then with the veteran. Let's split it up, 2 parts.
Well, oh boy, I'm going to be brutally honest on this one.
Do it.
I was always told that Tennessee's the Bible Belt, and I was always told it was very welcoming, and this was going to be an awesome experience. But my first year, I think I cried more than anything. I had guns pointed at me. I had neighbors trying to shut me down because I was an outsider. I was a girl. I've had locals and very specifically a government official tell me if I just marry a good local boy, things would get a lot easier for me. That's
a little creepy.
Yeah, I've never been one of those females to cry like women's rights. You know what I mean? Do the parades or raise the signs. Like, if you want something, you work hard, and, I can do whatever he can do. I just got to go do it. That's always been my attitude. But when I started this place, I had seen there really is some issues with women that run businesses and how some men treat them, because these were all men that did these things, and mainly locals. And I get that I was an outsider and I was called a Yankee and everything else, but from day one, I knew I was starting a business in a community. And that very first year, I was helping the community. I was buying Christmas presents for the veterans. I was buying Christmas presents for locals that didn't have money. I started a big Christmas program out here where I get a Santa and we have the Grinch and food, and I invite everyone out, and it's no charge. And it's like, I mean, every kind of food and dessert and present you can think of in life. Like from day one, I was trying to do the right thing and give back. And I was just like tarred and feathered, without them even knowing me yet. And, I had a few friends that I met, and thank God for them. Some were local. Some had just lived here for like 10 years, and they're like, I know the feeling. And, they all just encouraged me to dig my heels into the ground and not let them win, and kind of like, this too will pass. But I've done a lot of things in my life, from, starting multiple businesses, being in, more of I guess, a male populated world with construction and remodeling, flipping homes, just the military, everything. But this has been the hardest thing that I have done to date. So
Wow.
just getting it
There's a
up
lot of
and like,
unpacking there.
yeah, that's why I said I'm gonna be brutally honest. So
That's fine.
I
That's
almost
what
hope it gets around, because it was really freaking hard,
I'll bet.
So
How long were you in the service yourself?
6 years.
6 years. And the Army, right?
Yep, Army.
Awesome. My dad
Yep,
was
my son's dad did 16 years, Army Airborne. He was 82nd. So
oh, awesome. My dad was in Vietnam, 70 to 71 in the 173rd Airborne, and
yep.
as a sniper, and then was later attached to, when he came home, attached to the 101st. So, or puking buzzards, I think that's what Dad said, referred him to as back then. So, but awesome.
Right. So yeah, so that was kind of the hardest thing with business. But as far as the veteran and helping the veterans, and I'll just speak to very specifically getting the housing program up. To date, I have been the one flipping the bill. When I give a veteran or even a local during like really cold snaps, if I let anyone stay in the hotel for free, or I feed them, or just whatever it is, like, I flip the bill every Christmas party, 4th of July event, because Dragon City, when you start a restaurant and hotel, they typically say it's like 7 to 10 years before you start making a profit. The restaurant industry is brutal. There's not a lot of profit there to begin with, especially since we struggle with a current Monroe County law with our beer license. And so what's really kind of held me back from already having all of that up has just been finances. I've had to get so stable here, and I thought it was going to be a lot easier, because honestly, I thought I was gonna, like, I'm out in the middle of kind of nowhere. I'm on this very populated road. I would sure think that the government would want those tax dollars. I should have no problem getting a beer license. Well, Monroe County is still living back in the good old days of 1974. And even though every other county around us and throughout the whole state of Tennessee has changed this law, Monroe County has a 2,000-foot law from any like church, school, or hospital or private place of gathering that you can't get your beer or liquor license. Well, being that that's a
Utah has the
huge
same
thing.
stupidity.
Yeah, that's a huge thing when you have a restaurant, a hotel, or a resort. That's several $100,000 a year that I was immediately like out. So I've had to be very creative, over the years. And I've been fighting like hell. I've hired attorneys and lobbyists, and I'm not done yet. But and someday it will change. But that's really kind of halted it, because at the end of the day, it takes money to build something like that. So, I've been just slowly, building connections, relationships with other companies, other veterans, other veteran organizations like Mission Phoenix. And I think we have a pretty good plan this year on how we are going to start this year. In fact, we have started this year. I just finished leveling off about 5 acres of land, and had my soil engineer out here just last week to get all the septics approved. So, it is now in motion. It'll be a little more slow going than what I want, but we will have some homes down here soon.
Nice, very nice. Does Dragon City hold any events to help fundraise for what you're doing for your mission and other like for Mission Phoenix or
That's kind of what we've been building up to. We're kind of out here a little bit, so we're not like right in town. So obviously you got to want to drive out here. So sometimes events and things like that can be a struggle. But that's what we started. Last year we started a 4th of July event, like 5 days, I think, before 4th of July. Josh has actually been pretty instrumental in getting me connected with some good people that are really going to help, put this all together. There's a couple other veteran groups and organizations, and I've met them through some other one local Marine, that I've become really close friends with. He's, introduced me to a bunch of people as well. So that's kind of what we're gearing up to start doing. I would say by late summer, we'll be getting really loud about Bunker 22.
nice, very nice. So kind of getting through your questions here, then we'll throw Josh into the hot seat and
In the fire?
yes, we're gonna throw you right in the forge. And speaking of that of an idea where you got your tiny homes today, so if you ever get thinking about setting up a shop, you know, I'm not that far, I'm a plane ride away, but I also got friends in the area that could help. We could probably help do some crowdfunding if that's something not only just knives, but maybe a little bit of blacksmithing, something for one of the
Veterans to
things.
do.
Yeah, veterans. There's a lot
Yeah.
of groups around that's helping veterans through. Well, my dad, is an example, he veteran. He didn't start making knives. See, I'm 41 now, so Dad's been making knives for 41 years. After Vietnam, he came back to the railroad, then went to the coal mines and everything. Of course, back then, you just go home, don't worry about it. Then Vietnam veterans didn't have shit. Growing up and everything, there's times that go, find Dad. Nope, stay away from Dad. Go play. Dad's having
Josh knows nothing about that. His dad was kind of in the
My dad was pre-nom.
Yeah.
Oh,
So I
yeah.
totally feel your pain.
So, well, I'm the house I live in today is my boyhood home until I was 8 years old. Um, there's a fallout shelter in my basement. So the 80s, Reagan years, Cold
Yep.
War, stuff like that. So I've actually thought about maybe cleaning it up and move everything down to there, from the bunker, live from the bunker type shit. But that's kind of a pain in the ass to get down there and take people down there too. That'd be kind of weird. Come down, come. That'd
Yeah,
be
right. Come
right.
down to the dungeon.
Yeah, then throw some, lotion in a bucket and rub that lotion on the skin where it gets the hose. Oh, so I'm just anyway. Back to the questions here. See, I'm saying squirrel moments off the cuff, real quick. So you got your tiny homes. You got how close is this property? I mean, it's right within walking distance of the main.
Of Dragon City, yeah, it's pretty much all connected. I own three. It's kind of like a three-way on the road, and I own on all three sides essentially of the road, so it's all right there.
Very nice. Like I said, I've been through Marysville, dropped down through, mainly hung around Pigeon Forge for a day, up to JD's, and then went to Kentucky. But that's been about 5 years ago when we did a big family trip. So, last question here: What is a message you would like to share with the public that can help support Dragon City and their mission to help with veterans in the community?
Well, I guess twofold. If you're wanting to join us in our efforts, I'm on Facebook. I go live all the time. Reach out to us. Like I say, we're starting to build connections, not just locally, but more nationwide. There's a lot that can be done, but I think there's even more that needs to be done. And I would say on a non-business note, if you know that you have, a veteran in your community, if you see someone, struggling, a lot of people, I guess I always say you don't know what you don't know. And, sometimes a lot of these veterans that are struggling, they give people like they make them nervous, or, the heebie-sheebies, because they just don't understand, and they're honestly, they're the nicest guys in the world. I mean, they went to war for you, just, go up and say hi for 30 seconds, just thank a veteran, thank you for your service. You usually can tell a veteran.
Definitely. Like I said, grew up around it, and that's why I think I feel more comfortable around veterans. I get their dark sense of humor. It's hilarious.
Yeah.
You repeat those jokes to people who are non-veterans, and like, "Oh my God, you need therapy." Yes, but that's still not the point. But
that is therapy.
That is therapy. Yes. It's like, yeah, I was going somewhere with that, and I'll come back. But sounds like you've had quite the fight uphill for a little bit for the last 6 years, but it seems like you're coming into that plane.
We're getting there.
And like that, and actually JD kind of put the bug in my ear he's told me about this when we made connections about a year ago, about last May, I think, or was it in April or
John?
No, last May. So almost just over a year now.
Yep.
Hey, good things wait. So on the idea that, with the blacksmithing and the knife making and such, it gets veterans to, and if especially if there's a few guys that do occupational therapy with the forging and such like that, because if you can get them distracted and get them working on something, especially with other veterans, they tend to open up and work that through. I mean, I can sit there and listen to my friends and everything who are veterans when they're talking and such. I don't know how to re-advise it because I can sympathize, but I can't make that connection because I myself never went through that. I haven't been through the wars. I've heard the stories. I seen the stuff, growing up as a kid. I didn't understand. Hey, leave Dad alone. He's having flatbacks, or Dad's having not a good day.
Well,
growing up, you don't understand that. And I got older now with friends who went to Afghanistan, Iraq, and I went through all that. And they came home. They got all their therapy and that stuff that they've told me, and it kind of made things click.
Yeah.
As I mentioned before on the program with others, it's made things click like, oh, okay. So I kind of understand.
It's like the big struggle is what people don't understand unless you've been in the military. It's like you go into the military and they strip you down and they build you up, and the two things, that when you come home, and I wasn't gone for a long time. I didn't see war, but even when I came home, I learned really quick, that I had to have a purpose because it was gone. I felt lost. I knew exactly what I was doing every day when I got up. I knew what I was going to do till I went to bed. Like you know what you're doing. You have a purpose. You do, and you give it your all. And these veterans come home and, there's nothing there really to get them back into that, to find the purpose in the real world. And they really struggle with that. And they don't sometimes even know that they need that. And, the other thing, like you were kind of talking about with your friends and things, that whole battle buddy syndrome, that is such a real thing. And again, like my son's dad, like still to this day, he'll meet certain people, like Josh and Dan, for example, they've become such good friends. Like Dan would go to battle with him. He calls all the time, "It's you're my battle buddy," so it's like that really never goes away. And that's the struggle.
And stuff literally forged through
the
hells of fire.
I
mean, like I said, I've heard stories of, then I've listened to Sean Ryan's podcast, a few of the guys who were in SOG during Vietnam. Listened to a couple of guys on that. I'm like, holy shit, the shit that guys went through and dealt with. It's like, and the one guy, he came back. I think he is professionally one came to preacher, and the other one, I guess he does therapy and helps with veterans and such as well. Yes, I'll send you that link to that podcast. That's a good one to listen to. But real quick, if people are, can't make it out there and they kind of want to help support your mission, is there a way they can buy some merch or straight up donate to you? How would they get that?
Yep, absolutely. Actually, Josh and I are working on that right now. And here shortly, we'll have, Facebook pages. We'll have a link on Mission Phoenix, things like that, where they can donate to Bunker 22 and then some of the other programs that Josh and I are working on together. But right now, that's really been like some of our big focus is getting Bunker 22 up. So we'll be announcing that here very soon.
Very
If
nice.
somebody wants to talk to either one of us further about it, my phone number is all over. Josh's phone number is all over any of our social medias, websites, things, give us a call. We'd love to work, with them.
DragonCity.com.
Yep, DragonCityResort.com, Dragon City TN on social media for Tennessee, and then obviously Mission Phoenix.
Awesome. Well, Mandy, we're going to slide over to Josh and put him in the hot
Ah.
seat. Again, see, he's like, I'm out of here. What? You need help over there? So
Yeah.
let's dive into it. Josh, break us down. Tell us who you are. Give us a little background.
Okay.
You got some, she kind of set the bar high now, bud.
She did, but it's okay because she'll tell you anytime that I talk, I can talk for a couple of hours. So I'll try to give you a bridged version of everything.
Right,
My name is Josh Gagne. I am the founder of Mission Phoenix. We are, we're, I would say, pioneers in some of the programs that we're doing in regards to veterans with post-traumatic stress. Brief history on how it started was my father, which I briefly talked about, was he was a Marine. He was pre-NOM, 60 to 65. And in that time period, which we didn't know until after his passing, but in that time period, he went through several wars that were brutal, vicious wars. A lot of hand-to-hand combat, a lot of knife fights, a lot of very violent acts. Again, they had no idea, didn't know anything about it, but we were raised with a veteran that struggled with post-traumatic stress. My dad became a pastor. He found Christ in the 70s, and he loved the Lord. He loved people. He wanted to serve people, but he had a part of him that was just not right. And we saw it. We didn't know what it was until after. Now, in 2017, the last conversation I had with my dad, it was Mother's Day, and I was passing through. I wasn't going to see my dad. We didn't have the greatest of relationships, but he wanted to talk to me. And he started talking about 22 veterans a day taking their life. And I blew the entire conversation off. And
Hey, take your only time, bud. Take all the time you need.
I didn't listen to my dad. I kind of blew the what he was saying away. And I told him, I said, the VA will take care of it, Dad. Don't worry about it. And he said, no, I talked to the VA, and they'll talk you. All they do is talk you down. My father was telling me at that moment that he was at the end, and I just didn't pay any attention to it. I left the next day for Germany. I was going on a trip, and while I was there, I was actually in England at the time. I got a phone call from my brother saying that my dad had passed. Didn't know what happened. Had no idea. He didn't want me to know what happened. And it was actually a day and a half later from when it happened. I went to my computer because I had to know, curiosity, and the neighbor had videoed the entire incident. And my father was subject to what is called a suicide by cop. And the entire video was online. I saw it, and to this day, I can't get it out of my head. My dad lost his battle with post-traumatic stress. It was a war that I didn't even know about. From that point on, I struggled myself with, obviously you get a lot of questions, why, what could I have done differently? How could I have stopped this? What if I would have listened, which is my big one. But I began to go into a business drive. I've been an entrepreneur for 30 years, and I've run companies, I've owned companies, and I'm a problem solver. So I would go into companies and solve problems. This was no different. I took the problems of my dad and I started to solve them, and that led me into over 7,000 hours of research and development into post-traumatic stress. I started looking up journals, doctor notes, scientific studies, doing the research behind it, talking to veterans nationwide. In 2022, I decided it was time to start a nonprofit. Up until that point, I had been counseling with veterans nationwide through social media, veterans that I had met. And the winter or Christmas of 2021, I missed 2 phone calls. Everybody had my phone number. I missed 2 phone calls. When I called them back, their wives had answered the phones, and I knew that I couldn't get to them. So for me, that kind of hit hard because I was trying to solve a problem by myself. And it led me to, someone's got to fix it. In fact, back up, that was one of the key things. My dad would give me commands as a Marine. I grew up as a Marine. And the last thing my father said to me when I was walking out in a, I don't know, nonchalant way, like disregarding what he was saying, he looked at me and he said, Josh, he said, someone's going to fix this. And for years, in fact, I have in my office, I have it on my wall. Someone's going to fix it. So I began to do the research to try to figure out how to fix it. Started pulling in veterans nationwide, trying to get their input on what the problem is. Why are we in this situation? Why is the VA not helping? Why are nonprofits dropping the ball? Why are there so many nonprofits making millions of dollars and nothing going into programs that are actually working? So I started to develop my own programs. And through that, we started the Invictus Initiative, which was the first thing that I launched. And the Invictus Initiative is basically, it's a symbol. One of the big things with my dad was law enforcement had no idea what they were dealing with. They had the Invictus symbol is this little star with a comma right on there. And we developed it because law enforcement had no idea that he was a veteran. So I started writing some programs, trying to figure out how to solve the problem, developed the Invictus Initiative with the help of about 100 different veterans nationwide. And then in 2023, I get a message from an officer and he said, I have someone that needs to talk to a counselor. Do you have anyone? And I said, I'll do it. He refused to let me do it. Long story short, it was one of the officers that shot and killed my father. Well, we ended up meeting and we ended up talking. And I will tell you, he is part of Mission Phoenix today. He's one of my closest friends. He's my brother. And he has helped me develop what we call Code Phoenix, which is one of the only law enforcement training programs in the country that teaches law enforcement how to understand, de-escalate, and save a life of a veteran that is having an episode. I've personally trained over 500 officers. And we've got 13 case studies so far of veterans' lives that have been saved because of the program. So the Invictus Initiative is a massive, massive undertaking that we're trying to push nationwide, that we're trying to get out to every state, to every law enforcement agency. We're trying to keep it out of the hands of the VA. The VA has actually approached me to take over, and I refuse. It doesn't matter what dollar amount they're going to throw. The bureaucracies of the VA will absolutely destroy our veteran community. So we're keeping it private sector. And when it is finally established, we actually have written in the trademarking of the symbol of the training that a veteran board will take over it 100%. It'll be controlled by the veterans, not by the government. And that's one of our biggest programs that I've been working on now for roughly 7 years. And like I said, we want to take it nationwide. It's going to be nationwide. The invictusinitiative.com is a website that we have that kind of explains a little bit behind the scenes, what we're doing, why we're doing it. And veterans across the country right now are wearing the Invictus symbol on either a shirt, a hat, decals on their vehicles, on their motorcycles. And it is literally saving lives. And we can say that by fact that we're lowering the number of veteran suicides because of that program alone. And it's just going to continue, but that's one of our biggest things that we're doing. And then, when we started Mission Phoenix in 2022, one of my driving things was, veterans with PTSD are a majority of our homeless population. And people don't understand PTSD. When a veteran has post-traumatic stress, when they go to war, when they're and PTSD, and this is where I can go crazy and talk for hours, and I won't.
Let's go. Let's dive into it.
But I would tell you a little bit of the sciences behind it is when, PTSD is a label that I had a lady that tripped on a curb and she called me, she had PTSD, she wanted counseling. I can't help you with that. That is not, if you put her in an elevator with a veteran that's been through war and he says, I have PTSD, and she says, I do too, it's not the same. So we call it ADPTS, active duty post-traumatic stress. We take off the disorder because disorder is something that you're born with. We believe that you can learn to live with what you have if you understand what you're going through and what your mind's going through. So we have a lot of training for veterans for that. But in 2022, I had already been talking to veterans for years, and there's a correlation between PTSD and the homeless population of veterans. When they go through battle, they come home, and up to 50% of veterans will end up in divorce in the first 6 months because of their PTSD. Now, when that happens, you have child support, you have alimony, you have now you have PTSD, so now you have a disability, so your job's not the same. All these factors lead into the fact that a veteran that would have been thriving is now homeless. So immediately, one of the first things that I wanted to tackle was the homeless situation, right? Well, we started up, I started looking for other nonprofits that were like-minded, that were actually being effective. And like she said, Willie Franklin was one of them with Lost Vets. When I met Willie, I immediately thought, okay, I'm going to put this on the back burner, because why am I going to do something that somebody's already doing? Let me put my resources into helping him be more successful in doing what he's doing. So we put it on the back burner, but at the same time, we've always been trying to develop something for veterans, because like Mandy just said, if a veteran is homeless, yeah, you can give him a night, you can give him a month. But if you're not giving them the resources, if you're not teaching them what post-traumatic stress is, if you're not counseling through their nightmares, if you're not trying to work with them on a steady, consistent basis, all you're doing is putting him right back out there, right where he was. There's no help whatsoever in giving somebody temporary housing without trying to fix their mental state and their current situation. So our goal, even with the Bunker 22 program, is to have about a 6-month program with veterans come in for 6 months of housing, temporary housing. They get counseled, they get trained. We start building their resumes. We start networking with local organizations to help them get permanent jobs. And then we team up with the VOA, which Mandy talked about, with Lisa at the Volunteers of America, and we give them a permanent housing situation. We're going to go from them being on the streets to all the way to being thriving and actually having the opportunity to have a successful life again. When we're born, we have up until we're 27 years old for our mind to be fully developed. That's where we learn all our character traits, all of our habits, our attitudes, our temperaments, everything. Well, when you take someone that's in the military, they go in at 18, 19 years old, whatever, and they're in their at least 4 years, right? That is the primary years for your habits for the rest of your life. Well, you have some that are in 10 years, 15 years. When they get out, they know nothing of civilian life. They don't know how to act. They don't know how to respond.
That kind of brought up another thing I was going to say, and I'm sorry to interrupt you here. You're coming from military, you get done, you're out, you get your DD-14, however, you're discharged. You're walking out with an empty toolbox. And civilian life has a totally different toolbox.
Yeah.
So our military is go in, fuck shit up, kill the enemy, secure the thing, protect the homeland.
When without having an objective, a daily objective, their mind shuts down. I had a veteran that was telling me, he would do a tour. He did a tour, and in one day he's riding a Humvee through, explosions, a gunfire, all this stuff. And 3 days later, he's stuck in traffic in Knoxville, Tennessee. And he said the mental breakdown that you have from going from one to the other without any transition will literally drive you insane. And it's a problem that nobody talks about. And the veteran community won't talk about it either, because they feel like, I should be over this. I should be able to do this. If everyone else can do this and they're not even trained, then why can't I do this? So for us, it's important to not just give them that temporary housing, but to give them the tools that they need to actually thrive, to grow, to have a successful life and have a purpose. The biggest thing is a purpose. Without a purpose, they will self-destruct. They will become homeless. And ultimately, most of them will succumb to a lot of their battle scars from post-traumatic stress.
Quick question here that I didn't have on the in here. I've heard of other veteran organizations talk about. Is there certain veterans that's just you help, and they're just, if they're not willing to do the work? I mean, you can't, as the one guy said of the one interview, I can't think of the program. Oh, it was on Andrew Wilkow. They were talking about Dale. This is at some point you got to triage the situation. If the veteran, you can throw all the help you want at them, but if they're not willing to work through it, have you ever run into that situation? That makes sense.
Yeah.
They get the
actually,
like, what do you do?
There's not a whole lot you can do. Consistency is the biggest thing, but there's a mindset. So when you have a traumatic injury, okay, like let's say you're in a car accident, right? You're in a really bad car accident. You'll hear somebody say, well, it felt like I had an out-of-body experience, right? Or it was like this euphoric feeling. That's common in trauma. The difference with a veteran is there's a moral injury that's tied into that. That moral injury is when you're forced to do something against your conscience. When you think that it's not, you shouldn't be doing this, something that's unhumanly to do, taking someone's life, picking up body parts of your battle buddies, things like that. And the stories that I've heard will keep you up at night. I mean, it's ridiculous, but those, a lot of times when it's really, really intense, there's a guilt that ties in with their recovery. They feel like if they recover, they've done a disjustice to those that haven't recovered, to those that they lost in war. There's a, you can come up with all kinds of programs, but ultimately it becomes a spirit, a mindset for that veteran to want to be able to heal. Everybody can heal from these injuries. They're physical injuries, meaning the active duty post-traumatic stress is an actual physical injury. It changes the structure of your brain. Literally changes the structure of your brain. So you have to learn to live with that. A lot of them feel like they want to stay in that state because that's their penance. That's their paying for their buddy that they've lost that didn't come home. And it happens more times than not. I had, when I met Dan and Mandy last year.
That's what I was going to say. Josh, since he's been hanging out with Dan, he's been seeing things a little, he's been learning more, because Dan's, he was really screwed up and I've worked with him a lot, and I wanted to jump in because I wasn't sure if Josh was going to say something, but when veterans struggle and they don't want to be helped, and I think Josh is starting to see this, but when other veterans talk to them, so like we get veterans in here all the time, every day they sit down, and we have so many veterans that come in almost daily to have their lunch, and they know Dan and I, and over the weeks and the months and the years, they've totally opened up, and they're totally different here now than then. And now Josh is kind of starting to see that firsthand, and hopefully he can implement that, into his training. But to answer your question, the only thing I have personally seen to help veterans that just, refuse to want to get better for whatever the reason, if they feel like they need to self-punish themselves or whatever, it's getting them in with other veterans that understand and have been through it. And he's been able to now see this firsthand with Dan. So that's really kind of added to, I think, Josh's training as well.
Oh, absolutely.
As far as now what he can do. So
when I met Dan and Mandy last year, we were looking for a place where we could do a lunch for veterans. And we put out to community, and they immediately responded, yes, we'd like to do it here. And that kind of started it. Well, and then come 4th of July was coming up, and the news I'm kind of the local expert on post-traumatic stress in this area. So news is contacting me all the time. What about this? What about that? And I did a viral video on TikTok, just kind of letting people know that although 4th of July is our day to celebrate, that we need to be very conscious of the veterans in the community because they can be triggered by that. So open your doors to your veterans. Know who your veterans are. Check out your neighbors. So the news approached me after that viral video, and I told them, I said, it'd be great if the community would open their doors. If they're in a location that's outside the outskirts of the city, there's no fireworks around, if they would open their doors for veterans, so veterans have a place to go with other veterans. Immediately, Dragon City, Mandy and Dan, please, we want to do this. So we did that. And that day, I think that evening, I got a call from a veteran's wife in another state where law enforcement was at their door with their guns drawn. He was on the other side of the door with his gun drawn. And I'm on the phone trying to de-escalate the entire situation. Thankfully, she got the phone to law enforcement. We de-escalated law enforcement because you're never going to de-escalate the veteran, and save his life ultimately. Dan and Manny watched the whole process. And at that point, I think it's when it really began to, okay, let's start talking to Dan. And the first couple of times talking with Dan, Mandy had to be there. There was this, little apprehension on who am I? Dan did not want to talk to anybody else. He didn't trust anybody else. And then Manny at one point just gets up and walks out, and me and Dan are there. And me and Dan began bonding and having such a great friendship, and now Dan, I'm going to get emotional.
Dan will just call him when he's stressed out in the kitchen now because he has 30 tickets up.
Dan has become my best friend. right? My BB, my battle buddy. He is the person that has actually saved me when I'm actually here to save him, right? I mean, it's kind of there's an irony there. But me and Dan started bonding so intensely, and then over the year, just watching Dan just kind of blossom. Now, is he fixed? Absolutely not, because you can't fix it. But can you change that mindset, right? Can you open your mind up to other people? Now I see Dan coming out and he's talking to other veterans and they're bonding. And I remember the first time I met Dan, Dan wouldn't hug me for nothing. And now Dan, when he sees me, he's got his arms wide open. He's ready to hug me. So it's like you see this progression that happens. And the biggest key thing is being there for that veteran. I'm not a veteran, right? And that's my biggest hurdle. I'm not a veteran. I did go through 18 years of boot camp, because my dad was a Marine. But because I'm not a veteran, yeah, you feel me. You feel me.
But my dad's a survivalist, and we can talk more offline. Like I said, fallout shelter in the basement.
Yeah,
A
yeah.
couple hundred years of
Well, yeah,
food supply.
I'm sure I could tell you stories. You could tell me stories because it's amazing. But the long and short of it is that that these veterans need veterans to interact with them.
Yes.
They don't need someone like me. The entire board of Mission Phoenix is all veterans. I'm the only civilian that was on the board. So it's run by veterans because me being in the forefront, that's the biggest hurdle I get with veterans is first thing, did you serve? So as I say no, the credibility drops. So veterans speaking to veterans, veterans healing veterans is the only way that we're going to get past that. The VA is not going to do it, right? The government's not going to do it. It's a bureaucracy. There's so much red tape in there, so many hurdles to get through. We need immediate changes, immediate decisions, and immediate help. We don't need to be waiting 3 years for someone to push a piece of paper across the desk.
That ain't no shit. Quick question on here. I've been listening in the last few years about the ibogaine therapy. Are you familiar with hearing about that?
I've heard a little bit about it. I've not done a lot of research on it now, and because of what I do and the research that I've done, I've had a lot of people. Have you tried this? Have you done this? There's some things that I will say, yes, it's a good additive, but ultimately, what a veteran needs, and this is what I have found through all of this. There's just all kinds of therapies, all kinds of treatments, all kinds of whatever. Veterans that do struggle with activity post-traumatic stress, they're going to have nightmares, right? They're going to be up all night. They're not going to be able to sleep. They're going to have regrets. They're going to have guilt, all these things. You're never going to get past that if you don't have a core group of help, right? We started what was called relational counseling. It's not counseling. It's becoming part of that person's life. It's helping them work through those situations. When you're in war, when you go through the military, you have a battle buddy. You always hear the phrase, I got your six, right? That's somebody that's always behind them, that's willing to sacrifice their life at any given moment for that person that's in front of them. When they come home, they don't have that. They have nobody. Now they feel vulnerable. They feel alone. They feel like they're never going to get help. So if you can become that six for that veteran somehow, then they know they're not alone. We're developing programs. We got an app that I actually just got off the phone with a developer that's a good friend of mine, and he's actually going to try to develop himself. But he said it's probably going to be the most expensive app ever developed. But this app will literally save lives. But one of the big key things is creating that brotherhood with veterans so that they have immediate connections to those that are around them. Not virtual connections, but actual connections with other battle buddies that they may not even know live close to them. So we're trying to do a lot of things to break down those gaps. I'm interested to hear what that program is. I'm glad to research it and see if I put any weight behind it. There's some that I think are great. There's some that I would say don't even touch it. It's a waste of time, waste of money, waste of resources.
I've been listening, like I said, I've been listening to the ibogaine and listening to the veterans who've gone through it. From Joe Rogan's podcast to Sean Ryan to a few other things I've listened to. Listen to the testimonies. Tennessee actually has started passed. It's called the Hope. I'm looking it up here. I knew they passed something, but I want to get it right. It's called the Hope Treatment Act. Which basically it boils down to is give immunity to clinics and such like that to use the ibogaine, which is non-addictive. It's not. You can't get high on it. It's got to be done clinically, or you can kill yourself because of cardiac issues. But they're using it to help treat veterans with opioid abuse disorder, PTSD, traumatic brain syndrome. They've shown a lot of promise with that. Of course, unfortunately, we have to send our veterans and other, veterans and first responders and such like that over to Mexico in order to do it. We can't do it in our own country because
Right.
we're
It's not approved yet.
stupid. Um, and the reason why I kind of listen, like I said, listen to it, listen to the testimony, listen to that, and to their stories, and I can correlate with growing up to seeing what Dad's gone through. When Dad's back's turned to he's grinding or whatever, he's focused on something. You got to stand there and wait for a minute to get his attention. When we thought it was funny, he was a kid, drop something, Dad jump, yeah.
Yeah.
There's other times, if you didn't put the hammer back to where it was supposed to be, Dad would pretty much
Yep.
lose his. I mean, you can understand. I mean,
Yeah,
I'm not trying to throw
absolutely.
my dad under the wall, but growing up and everything else, you're like, why would Dad lose his mind? I mean, just a dumb hammer. Of course, we in Dad's mind, no, that's a tool I need. Something's going to happen. We need to do that to protect the family. Dad's mind is military.
Yep.
Dad's never left the military. Dad's still with us. He's 76 years old. Still tries to do stuff like when he's 30. Yeah, I'm sure the guy can still outpack most people. His goal, he goes out once or twice a month now. He used to do it all the time. See if he can still rock a 60-pound backpack. We have a United We March deal. A friend of mine, actually a cousin, started to help with veterans, to help veterans in our community. And I'll have to give you in touch with him as well. That'd be awesome there. But I just think this ibogaine is another tool for veterans, especially with
Yeah.
substance abuse. They're claiming, again, I'm just repeating what I've heard, the first treatment with most veterans with substance abuse. Big words. I'm trying to be big words here. Mandy, you can make
You're a
fun of
big
me.
boy.
Big there, big boy. Yeah, he's a big boy. I'm a big boy. Oh, squirrel moment. And helping it's like almost like 80% of the first treatment, and I think you have to space those treatments
Yeah.
out, and especially with traumatic brain injuries. Um,
And the interesting thing on that whole program that when I read up on that before, is one of the things that the struggle is that, post-traumatic stress on a veteran is a lot of a chemical reaction, right? It's the adrenaline, it's cortisol, it's all these different chemicals that will feed into your euphoric state of your mind, which causes you to have an episode or a trip or a trigger. So this drug that they're talking about, what they're trying to give, on some people works fantastic, but on some people it's actually counterintuitive
I've
and it
heard that as
hurts them.
well.
So that's kind of the struggle where I'm at. Yeah, I'm all for trying something. In fact, there was, when I first read on that, someone had immediately sent that to me, and I remember thinking to myself, if this works, because once you understand what true post-traumatic stress is in a veteran's mind, like the way that it's routed through the channels that are bored into the brain, all that stuff, it makes sense that this could actually work. But is it the end all for everyone?
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely not. That's going to be the problem. And then how do you test that in a controlled environment enough that it doesn't make that veteran self-destruct in the meantime?
Yep. And
That's my only hang up.
yeah, I agree with you 100%. That Mark Lissottrell went through it and everything. And I'll send you a link to
Yeah, absolutely.
from Joe Rogan. When they first had
I think I may have actually listened to it.
Governor Rick Perry, and I can't think of the guy. He's from Tennessee as well.
Mhm.
When that
Yeah,
guy
I do think I
talks,
listened
you
to it,
listen.
but
I'm like,
send it to
holy!
me.
I will. I'll find it. There's two, and there's one a year ago, and then the one they just did recently and such. Um, like I said, the testimony is what does it for me. I kind of proofs in the pudding kind of
Sure.
governments. Oh, we got to do studies, which means somebody's in the corner going, "Ha ha, money."
Yeah, they're going to get money from it. And honestly, I think if it does actually work, if they can tune it to get it to work, I think we need to keep it in either a private sector or in another country, because once the government gets a hold of it, we're not going to be able to get it to the people that need it.
But it sounds like Tennessee and Texas, the Ibogaine Initiative in Texas, and now the Hope Treatment Act in Tennessee. When you get off here, you check that out.
Yeah.
It goes in effect on July 1st of this year. So basically, kind of gives criminal immunity to state sanctioned Ibogaine clinics, which basically probably clinics or need to be. But anyway, I just wanted to run past that, get your input on that. We could dive in hours on that. But back to what you're saying. I'll pull up the questions here so I don't get lost. Actually, you've kind of been answering all these questions I've been coming up with. So have came up, so I didn't have to
I,
ask.
I'm used to speaking in groups for hours, so it's
I couldn't do
I
that.
have
I
to
mean, I
calm
get up in front of
myself.
people to speak. I'm like that. You know, I'm not good. Me and the English language are not the best friends. You know, a little bit of the ADHD and the TISM. I guess they could say. I don't know. I was diagnosed back in the early '90s, hyperactive. That's what it was called back
Yeah.
then. So, you know, get your ass kicked a few times and your attention comes back, kind of thing.
Yep.
But back into it. Let's dive into it. The sidetrack on there. Um, quick question here. Can you share a success story? And you kind of have already, I guess, but one that really, really stands out to you of
Mm.
a success story with a veteran.
Yeah. I will, because there's one that it hits me really hard. You know, when I would teach all these law enforcement officers, and law enforcement officers don't want to be taught by somebody. They don't. You know, came in there immediately. They got chips on their shoulders. Some are very receptive. But I did get a call from an officer here locally, and real brief, the situation was that he was pulled over, you know, clocking cars going by, and a car came by just blazing, going in and out of cars, and he pulled up, you know, put his lights on, try to, you know, catch up to him. Took him a couple miles to catch up to him. The guy was going so fast, and finally the guy pulled over. Well, the law enforcement officer he said he was fuming, ready to get out of the car, ready to rip this guy through the window, just absolutely just this guy's risked so many people's lives, all this stuff. He got out of the car, and on the back window was one of the Invictus decals. This veteran had literally had a decal on his window. And that law enforcement officer said, he said, I looked at that decal, he said, and I immediately remembered the class. And he said, and I didn't pay attention at all. So he went back into his car, and I give law enforcement officers a little cheat card, you know, what to say, how to de-escalate, stuff like that. And the officer said, I sat there shaking because I knew I should have paid attention. He said, but I read through the card, and he said, and I couldn't even focus on the card. He said, I just needed to talk. He said, I know I just needed to talk to the veteran. So one of the cues that I teach law enforcement is you don't walk over with your hand on, you walk over with your hand on your firearm. That's a trigger for a veteran that is, you know, having an episode.
I've seen that very
So
first hand.
he said he came out with his hands up high by his chest, you know, not near his firearm. When he walked up to the car, he saw the biggest hands gripping that steering wheel. Didn't even see the guy, just saw these massive hands. And he walked over, got in plain view of the guy that was in the car, and he said, "Are you okay?" And immediately this guy just starts breaking down, starts bawling, crying. Turned out he was a veteran, and he did what he did because he had driven by, saw the officer sitting there already, went back by them purposefully so that he would chase them with the plan of this law enforcement officer shooting and killing him. He literally told the officer, he said, I wanted you to kill me today. And the officer looked at him and said, I'm not going to kill you today. He said, but I'm here to help you. So this officer literally speaks, they talked for about 30 minutes. And then the man in the car looks at the officer and says, can I give you the officer said, can I give you a hug? And this guy got out. He said he was about a foot taller than him. Now, this guy was massive. Gives him the biggest hug. They exchanged phone numbers. And now to this day, they're friends. And to me, that's one of the biggest, what I would say is you literally have a veteran saying, I wanted you to kill me today. And you have an officer that's saying, I refuse to. Right? It's a conscious decision between two people that day to walk away together. So that was one of the ones that kind of, when I heard that, and I've heard all of them, I've been called out to houses where an officer called and said that they were going to have to put a veteran down. And they called me, and I rushed over to the scene, and I actually de-escalated the situation. So I've seen all different kinds, but that one to me just shows the compassion that if we just take 2 extra seconds to communicate with these veterans that are having an episode and want to end their life, that we can literally save their life.
That's awesome. So, all right, that leads into this question perfectly. So, for those veterans who are struggling and hesitant to ask for help, what is your message that you want to share today that may be listening to this program or the clips or however this gets out there? So, what would be
Yeah.
your mission?
I would
Primary.
say for any veteran that does not want to ask for help, you've been trained, right? You've been taught how to follow objectives, how to complete missions. Like you are trained to solve problems. There's a problem and you need to solve that problem. Not asking for help is not an option. It should be your objective. It should be your mission is to find help, no matter where that is, no matter who that's through. Missionphoenix.org is available. Our social medias, I respond to everybody. If someone is out there struggling, if someone needs someone to talk to, I will gladly give them my phone number and I will talk to them. There's never going to be an excuse that you don't have somebody because everybody has somebody. One of my favorite quotes by Ronald Reagan was, "We can't help everybody, but everybody can help somebody." And if we can get that mentality, we can start solving this problem.
And earlier you said I heard something about an app. Is there one you already have or you're in the
It
works?
is not out. It's
Okay.
going to be probably another 5 years. But when it does come out, those that know about it, they'll tell you this will save lives. It's direct, and I won't give too much information because I don't want someone to do it wrong, right? I've got, like I said, over 7,000 hours of research and development. I'm not the pro. I'm not the guide for everything. But there's a lot of people out there that can take what I've learned and make a lot of money from it. And it's not about the money. In fact, everything that we've written, nobody makes money from it. It's 100% voluntary. I don't want someone to take what we're doing, monetize it, and in the end, ultimately lose lives because they didn't do it for the right reasons.
Okay, that's understandable. And is there any way to help? I guess I'll come back to that question. So let's go back. How can our listeners that are be listening to here Behind the Anvil? Like I said, there's a lot of bladesmiths, blacksmiths out there who are veterans. That bladesmithing has really helped them out. I've heard the stories. A friend of mine in Kentucky, Jeff Peters, he's a veteran, and bladesmithing has helped him a tons. Gives him that purpose, gives them that tool, so they can when they're having bad days, you can focus on the work and trying to work that through their mind. When days are like that, how can Mission Phoenix help those bad days? I guess you could say.
How can we help the bad days
Yeah.
for them? Well,
Yes.
it's really about community. It's about connections. We are not Mission Phoenix is. We love to be. We will be nationwide at some point. We'll go nationwide. We'll have pockets nationwide. We have programs that are going to go nationwide. But ultimately, there are a lot of organizations out there that are helping. Reaching out to those organizations, and if someone can't find one, reach out to me, and I will help you find that organization. But ultimately, you have to have a community. You have to have someone that you can rely on, someone that you can talk to. And if you don't, then you're literally trying to solve a problem by yourself that you're not meant to solve by yourself.
Awesome. So, if people like me, or civilians or whatever, want to be able to, I'm sure things cost a little bit. If they want to donate, is there a way to donate to Mission Phoenix via social media, Venmo, or whatever?
Yeah, you can go right to our app, right to our website, excuse me, missionphoenix.org. We have a donation page. We're also on Cash App, Venmo, PayPal. We take donations anyway. One thing that I always try to stress to people, because what we do is invaluable, right? And it's extremely costly. If I had $1 million, if I wanted that $1 million, if I wanted my dad back, which one would I choose? Right? Money is irrelevant because what we need and what we're trying to do is costly. But if it saves somebody's life, it's worth every penny of it. So, yeah, funding is one of our biggest issues. We just don't have the funding that we need. The app, for instance, is going to cost close to $300,000 to $400,000. It is not by any means a cheap app, and that's just to get to the first stage. And there's about 8 different stages to it. So it's going to be when it's done, it'll be a few $1 million worth for an app that we're going to provide free of charge to our veteran community, because that's what it's about. It's not about making the money. It's about helping and saving the life.
And app
So
building is not
missionphoenix.org is the best place to get it.
awesome. App, like you said, app building is not easy. I'm working with some friends that are building an app and everything, and done Zoom calls with them, watching them. Like, wow, there's a lot of into it. Even especially, it sounds like your app's gonna be more extension, more in depth to and tools and layers to it than what theirs gonna be. So yeah, that's awesome. That's a great story. Anything else you want to share? Because I'm out of questions now, so we're gonna do
I
free for
I
all.
appreciate my time. I know this is about Dragon City, and let me tell you,
No, it's
you
we're
know,
gonna make it both. So we're gonna tie it all
well, but
together
I
because
mean, it's Dragon City though is what I meant to say, and sometimes I do skip over my words, just like you. Dragon City is I've learned so much more from what I've done. Like I said, I've got 7,000 hours of research. That's case studies. That's documented paperwork through doctors and colleges and watching chest cam videos of law enforcement, which is the hardest thing I've ever done. Coming here and in the day-to-day activity of having veterans coming through here, sharing their stories, sharing what they've gone through, that's been more rewarding to me, I think, than anything. And it comes down to being that not like an echo chamber. It's like you're there to listen to people. The veteran will talk. They need someone who will listen, who won't judge them, who won't look at them differently, and who will ultimately stand by their side no matter what. And if you can do that and perform that for a veteran, you become their battle buddy. You've ultimately most likely have saved a life because now they have somebody that they can turn to in that time of need. My dad didn't have that. And a lot of the NOM area people, they don't have that. They don't know the technology. They don't know how to connect. And sadly, we lose a lot of them. And now the new generation is rapidly, the statistics are not 22 a day anymore. The VA will say it's 17, but they case studied 5 states. The DOD and University of Mississippi, I believe it is, or Michigan, I
yeah,
can't
I
remember.
think it was Mississippi.
Yeah, they did their own, and it's really 44 to
I
48
could
a
say
day.
it's gonna be around 44 to almost
Yeah.
50 a day.
The VA is trying to deceive the people like they're doing something good and they're destroying our veteran community.
Well,
And I said that out loud.
I agree with you. The VA is a form of social medicine. Where anywhere
Yeah.
in the world is socialized medicine, and we're like, oh, we need Medicaid for all, then you will have nothing. You want to see
Yeah.
an example of Medicaid all? The bureaucracy of the VA.
Yep.
So
Absolutely.
let's tie this up with the tie yeah, come full circle. Mandy, anything you want to add on to that? Because I
Nope,
know I can't. Uh
nope. I think we've pretty much said everything.
that's awesome. So Dragon
I mean, I
City.
guess essentially we talked about, Bunker 22. He had his thoughts and, what he wanted to do before, he met me, and I had mine before I met him. And now at least we're able to put that together with, double the resources
It's really a
so we
good,
can finally get it done.
yeah, it's a good community effort, joint effort of, I had the background, she had the plan, like she's wanted to do this, I've wanted to do this. And now it seems like it's merging to a point that we believe we can successfully do this in a way that is going to literally help veterans and save veteran lives.
That's awesome. Well, hell, I don't even know where else to go from there. I mean, you guys covered that up pretty good. I had my questions, but now I feel very unprepared. Um, so, and you got the like you said earlier, Mandy, you got another acre, about a, what 100 acre lot. I guess you're clearing and getting everything to soil test. When do
Yeah,
you
I
expect?
I cleared about a 5 acre lot to start the housing on.
Okay. For some reason, my mind went to 100 acres. I don't know why. Maybe
Yeah,
that's
I
all.
had said I had originally bought 100 acres when I
Okay,
bought
that's why.
Dragon City.
Okay, that's why. When do you expect to start building for that?
We are hoping to get a septic in the ground and get a house down, at least one this year. So we have a mutual friend in an organization that they actually may be their companies may be donating the first one, which we're also hoping will help domino other companies and organizations to do the same. Like I say, we're about to get real loud. We're just gearing up for it. Make sure that we have all of our ducks in a row. So if it does, really take off and we get the help, we can run with it.
And to give you a little perspective too on what it costs, because a lot of people are like, well, it's just a little tiny home. For each individual unit will cost close to $50,000 to $70,000.
People don't think about the infrastructure.
Yeah.
It's like you got the tiny home or you got the crate and then you got to build it. But there's also all the infrastructure, the water, the power, the sewer, the driveways, just even the land moving. I just, dropped 40 grand into making it flat. So
And if
So
people
yes,
want to, if people want to donate, Mandy, um,
Yeah, same
see
thing.
if
Like I say, they can, right now, they can just, if they wanted to donate today, they can go to Mission Phoenix. Otherwise, I know we've discussed actually having something for Bunker 22. So there's like a site, people can see what we're doing. We'll be doing live videos. So everybody knows, I'm a big one on that. I get people that come to Dragon City because they know what I do. And they're like, here's $20, just make sure this goes to Mandy, for the veterans, so on and so forth. But I'm really big on being very public with everything I do. Like you go to my Facebook, every time someone donates, I'm like, here's another program that we're doing. We put another veteran up. So it's, we're
accountability.
yeah, we're out in the open
And
about
that's
it.
important because there's a lot of nonprofits that will take money and you'll never know what happens to it. But with even what we do, we try to make everything very transparent on where everything goes to. But this is a housing project that, our ideal would be to have at least 12. So you times that times $50,000 to $70,000. It's going to be costly. So having companies or organizations that want to buy their own, put their company logo on the house itself because
oh,
they
I like that
purchased
idea.
that.
That's
Yeah,
good.
we're right on the tail of the dragon. So, and
It's good
we have
advertisement for
yeah,
them.
we have a big billboard area. So they're going to be right there as people come off. Thousands
Yeah.
and thousands of people
And
come
then
off the
they'll
tail
be
every
listed
year.
on our Bunker 22 website that basically says, I house a veteran or I bought a house for a veteran. So it's going to be a big deal. And it's going to, we're planning on taking this program into different states as well, because it's going to be a great program. And a lot of companies are going to want to get on board at the early end of it. Because if there's only 12 out here, that's 12 companies that are going to get their foot in the door. Then another state will have another or not, So the sooner the better for people to jump in on it.
And then now these are just the housing is for basically giving them a place, start giving them the tools to they eventually, I guess, transition out of these into their own, get their own property.
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
we'll make sure to set them up with the correct people. And that's where I say, like the VOA, my girlfriend Lisa up there, she helps veterans all the time get permanent housing, but it's a process. It just doesn't happen overnight. And that's the gap that I was talking about.
This is going
What
to
do
be the
you do with
stopgap.
the veteran until then?
Yeah. That's when they go right back into homelessness. So working with other organizations is key. Having the programs to rehabilitate them into the community is key. You don't do it in a certain stage. You do basically what you're doing is it's a horse and pony show for the community that you're doing something for the veterans. And we're not here for horse and pony shows. We're here to actually fix the problem and restore these lives that are being damaged.
That's awesome. Anything else you want to share, bud?
They said we could talk for hours, but I think that's probably good.
Awesome. Andy, anything else you want to share about Dragon City? Any funny stories as we're going to walk out of here?
Do you want me to talk for an hour or two? Because I could do that.
I know we can. I
I
could record for
just
30
started.
hours.
Well, I just started a whole series called Dragon Drama. So I just
I
push
seen
people
that.
to
Let's talk about that real quick.
just
I mean, we
push
were real
people to
serious
Facebook.
there.
I have a couple more that I'm ready to push out. I've been merging them together. But if you
Can we
want
get the
some good
exclusive
drama,
one?
some good laughs, a little behind the scene, just watch those.
Well, how about they give us one for an exclusive?
One, like give you one. Well, but I don't have the video and like the like, because I record things.
Oh, I know, but you just do it right here.
The lettuce guy.
The lettuce guy with the forks, the lettuce.
Oh, so we just get all sorts of crazy stuff here. It's like just the other day they were recording me, ranting because I had some 19, he's probably like 18, 19-year-old kid. We have it's like a big buffet kind of bar. It's not a buffet, but it's a topping bar. It's like a build your own burger, right? Mm-hmm. So you got your lettuce, your tomato, your pickles, all of this. And you got this kid going through and, he's, spooning all of his stuff onto his plate. And then he sees the lettuce. I don't know if he got excited, had a squirrel moment, but he literally just takes his hand, like puts it in the lettuce, and I'm like, do you see the tongs there? And he looked at me and he's like, oh, it's just, or like the lady that threw food at me. She, after I wouldn't give her a bunch of free food, she reached over my ice cream counter and grabbed a bunch of ice cream cups to fill it with like macaroni and cheese and whatnot. And when I confronted her, took me 3 times. Like, you can't do this. She ignored me, and just whips food at me. So I started walking around with these little cameras because I didn't have cameras for either one of them. And they're way funnier, obviously, when you're recording someone and you see the face, and it takes all kinds.
So you're going to say basically the Tales from the Tales of the Dragon.
Yeah, Dragon
Oh,
drama.
That's gonna be an awesome YouTube series. I mean,
I think so. At the end of the day, people love to watch drama, but they hate real drama in their life. So I'm like, if I'm gonna, and it's every day, it's something. We get some dodo that's just stops in the middle of the road and wants to.
I remember this.
They just did that. This just happened again yesterday.
Yeah, yesterday.
Yesterday we had 2 people, but we had this one person pull in at the motorcycle parking, and they try and do a Y turn in the middle of Highway 129, and then they go to back up and like literally almost clipped a Harley. Like, I thought they were going to take that Harley down. Like, they only had to be about that far away. And Dan screaming at him, "Go forward!" And I got it all on video. But he's like, "Move!" Like, he's just. It's a mess. Some people, where did common sense go?
I get to hear about it because I'm usually in the kitchen, so I hear
common sense go. Like, you were on a very busy road. You can't do that stuff.
I would say no. Hey, Gal, I don't know where else to go from there. I definitely, when you get
Dragon drama.
We'll have to do an episode on Dragon drama one of these times too. Yeah, when you get closer to announcing your other stuff, let's jump back on here.
Yeah, I'll post it all on Facebook. You and I talk. Obviously, don't forget we have your knives up here. So we've been telling people about that. So
that's awesome.
I love the Damascus steel, by the way.
You can
as soon as I saw that Damascus, I was like, ooh.
Yeah.
We'll have to make you a dragon chef knife since you're going to.
Why don't you make me a Phoenix chef knife, and then we can auction it off.
We could do that. We got lasers and engraving. I'm not.
There you go.
So I'll come up with something.
Our slogan was always "Forged in the fire of tragedy, hope rises from the ashes." So
I like that.
Yeah.
No, we appreciate getting on with you and just helping get the word out.
I hope this helps. I mean, it's just I started it almost a year ago. My goal is to go a complete year. And then I started finding myself having a lot more fun here. I have no idea what I'm doing. I don't know if I'm a good interviewer. As you can see earlier, I'm not very good with words. But I'm putting myself out.
Or you open jars of pickles.
Yes. That was the daughter. She's like, come in. She's cooking. I can smell the hamburgers. And I'm sitting there like, and then she talked. I'm like, okay. And had to open the pickle jars.
That's what makes it real.
Right.
Yeah.
All right.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Hey, before we get out of here, let's drop all your socials again. Especially that way AI can get it, so I'll put everything in. If you're listening this far, check the description below. You'll have all the links. But Mandy, shoot out all your social and website.
So Dragon City is in Tennessee on the Tennessee side of the tail of the dragon, and we are located right on Highway 129, which is known as the tail of the dragon. It's www.dragoncityresort.com, and on social it is Dragon City TN. And my phone number is all over. Call, text, email, you'll get a hold of me.
Awesome. Josh?
MissionPhoenix.org is our website. You can go there. There's links to the Invictus Initiative, to the Invictus brand, and we're on all social medias under Mission Phoenix org, or on Facebook, Mission Phoenix 22 specifically. Also, let me throw one more thing out there. The Invictus logo, that is a solo logo, can only be worn by a veteran. So it is trademarked specifically that only a veteran can wear it.
But you can wear this one.
This is the awareness hat. So
I like that. That's awesome. The camera's just ready.
He was gonna quick go grab the 2 different hats to show.
That's all right. We'll see that.
We carry the merch in here, and actually, since he started carrying the merch at Dragon City because of all the veterans that come through, a lot of them are getting out.
Yeah, that's the Invictus symbol itself. Nice. And then that's the awareness symbol. So this can be worn by civilians. This is illegal for a civilian to wear.
Nice.
Only veterans can wear it.
I like that. And hey, Mandy, when I'm at shows and such, when people are looking at the knives, I just look at them. They're like, are they sharp? Yeah. If you bleed on it, you buy it. So that's
Fair.
my policy.
They're
So,
sharp. They're
Sharp.
sharp. I know that you sent me that one, and man, it goes right through all the Amazon boxes that I get daily.
hey, there you go. And if you need to, if you got to jab JD in the shoulder a little bit every now and then too, you can kick him right in the butt. So
I'm sure he'll watch this. He'll
well,
probably
he
get you for
better.
that
If
one.
not, he's getting banned. I met JD through Forge and Fire and such. He was a customer, become a pretty good friend. JD is JD. Sometimes you just got to throw him a cup of water in his face and cool off, but he good
Yep.
people most times. So
He is.
all right. I think we're gonna jet out of here. I'm smelling food cooking. I'm starving to death now. Finally, I'm glad after a year we got to do this.
Yes, I'm sorry.
It's not your fault. Hey, business is business, and I get that. Um, I think we got it when it needed to come out when it needed to. So
It did. We had a lot more to say.
let me know when you guys got your other stuff coming up. We can get on here and
Definitely.
record and then drop it right at the same time. So let me know, and we're gonna
Okay.
get out of here. So I'm
Awesome.
gonna tie this up. Once I hit the stop button, just stay with me for just a second after that. But
You got
hey,
it.
as we say in the shop, America, stay sharp, America. Remember, there's only one King, and that's Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior. If you want to get to know Him, reach out. We'll be glad to have a conversation with you. For our veterans, check out missionphoenix.org. So appreciate y'all. Remember, drop us a comment, let us know, and share the word.